The dismissal started when I was 16. Community service hours don't impress anyone, Mom had said, watching me sort donations at the local food bank. Your sister is studying pre-med. That's real ambition. I'd nodded and kept folding clothes. Sarah was 3 years older, brilliant, confident. She became a pediatric surgeon by 32. Our parents displayed her achievements like trophies, framed diplomas, award plaques, newspaper clippings about rising star in pediatric medicine. My volunteer coordinator certificates went in a drawer. I worked at the foundation throughout college. Started as an intern processing grant applications. The Martinez Foundation had been established by a tech billionaire in 2008, focusing on healthcare access, education equity, and poverty relief. By the time I graduated, I was analyzing funding proposals. Nobody in my family asked about my work. They assumed I was a low-level administrator. Still doing paperwork for charities? Uncle Robert would ask at family gatherings. When are you getting a real career? I'd smile. The work is meaningful to me. Sarah would laugh. Meaningful doesn't pay 6 figures. She earned $340,000 annually as chief of pediatric surgery at Metropolitan Children's Hospital. She mentioned it often. Her house cost $1.8 million. Her car was a Tesla Model S. Her vacation photos from the Maldives filled Instagram. My apartment was modest. I drove a 10-year-old Honda. I wore simple clothes. You could do so much better, Mom would say, disappointed. You're smart enough. You just lack ambition. What they didn't know, I'd been promoted 7 times in 12 years. At 29, I became the youngest director of grant operations in the foundation's history. At 31, I joined the executive board. At 33, I was offered the position of chair. The foundation's endowment had grown to $3.2 billion. I approved or denied funding requests worth hundreds of millions annually. My decisions affected hospitals, schools, research facilities, and community programs across the country. Grant applications crossed my desk from Nobel Prize winners, university presidents, and hospital administrators, including, eventually, my sister's hospital. But first came Thanksgiving. The dinner was at my parents' house in suburban Connecticut. Sarah arrived in her Tesla, her husband Marcus behind the wheel. He was an orthopedic surgeon. They'd met in medical school. Emma. Sarah hugged me, then stepped back to examine my outfit. Still shopping at Target? It's comfortable, I said. Comfortable, she repeated like the word was foreign. Well, I suppose that's what matters when you're not building a career. Mom had set the table with her fine china. Dad carved the turkey with ceremonial importance. Sarah and Marcus sat at the positions of honor. I was at the far end, next to cousin Jennifer, who worked in retail. Sarah, tell everyone about the new wing, Mom prompted. Sarah's face lit up. The hospital is expanding pediatric oncology services. It's a $45 million project. We're creating a state-of-the-art facility with family-centered care design, advanced radiation equipment, and integrated research labs. That's wonderful, Aunt Patricia said. We've secured $18 million from the state, Sarah continued. Another $12 million from private donors. But we're applying for a major foundation grant to complete the funding. If we get it, we'll be able to start construction by spring. You'll get it, Dad said confidently. Look at your credentials. Any foundation would be lucky to fund your work. Sarah smiled. I hope so. The application went to the Martinez Foundation. They're the largest healthcare-focused foundation in the region. Getting their backing would be transformative. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. The Martinez Foundation. My foundation. I said nothing. How much are you requesting? Uncle Robert asked. $15 million, Marcus said. It's a competitive process. Hundreds of hospitals apply. But Sarah's program has exceptional outcomes. Our pediatric oncology survival rates are among the highest in the Northeast. They'd be stupid not to fund you, Mom said. The conversation shifted to Sarah's recent television interview about childhood cancer treatment innovations. She'd appeared on the local news. Mom had recorded it and made everyone watch. I ate my turkey and said little. Emma, you're quiet, Aunt Patricia observed. How's your charity work? The way she said charity work made it sound trivial. It's going well, I said simply. Still doing the same thing? Sarah asked. Administrative stuff? Yes. You know, Sarah leaned forward. If you wanted to transition into something more substantial, I could probably get you an interview for a hospital administration position. Entry level, but it would be a start. That's generous, I said. I'm content where I am. Sarah exchanged a glance with Marcus. Content. Sure. But don't you want more? Success. Recognition. I have what I need. What you need, Dad interjected, is ambition. Look at your sister. She's changing children's lives. Making a real difference. Emma makes a difference too, Cousin Jennifer said quietly. Volunteer work matters. Sarah laughed. Volunteer work is for people who can't handle real careers. It's participation trophy territory. Nice but meaningless in the actual world. Sarah, Mom said, but her tone was mild, almost amused. I'm serious, Sarah continued. Emma, you're 33. You should be building something by now. A career. Financial security. Instead you're playing charity worker like it's a college hobby. Marcus nodded. The nonprofit sector is noble, but let's be honest, it's where people go when they can't compete in real professional environments. That's not fair, Jennifer protested. It's realistic, Sarah said. Emma could have gone to medical school, law school, business school. Instead she chose to process paperwork for donations. It's embarrassing, honestly. The table went quiet. I cut my turkey carefully. You're entitled to your opinion. It's not opinion, Sarah said. It's fact. Charity work is for losers who can't make it in competitive fields. It's the professional equivalent of living in your parents' basement. Dad chuckled. That's harsh, Sarah. But accurate, Sarah insisted. I love my sister, but someone needs to tell her the truth. She's wasting her potential on meaningless volunteer coordinator positions. It's not meaningless to the people we help, I said calmly. Oh please, Sarah rolled her eyes. That's what everyone in the nonprofit world says to justify their irrelevance. Meanwhile, those of us in actual careers are solving problems, saving lives, building things that matter. Your hospital is applying to a nonprofit foundation for funding, I pointed out. That's different, Marcus said. Foundations are investment vehicles for wealthy donors. The people who work there are glorified paper pushers. The real impact comes from institutions like hospitals that actually deliver services. Sarah raised her wine glass. Exactly. Foundations exist to fund people like me. The workers there are just middlemen. No offense, Emma, but your job is basically sorting mail. I smiled and took a sip of water. Maybe it's time to grow up, Sarah added. Stop playing in the nonprofit sandbox and join the real world. You're smart enough. You just lack drive. The conversation moved on. Sarah described her hospital's recent achievements. Mom beamed with pride. Dad asked detailed questions about the grant application process. I finished my dinner in silence. The grant application arrived on my desk the following Tuesday. Metropolitan Children's Hospital. Requesting $15 million for pediatric oncology wing expansion. Principal investigator. Dr. Sarah Chin, Chief of Pediatric Surgery. I read through the 50-page proposal. It was impressive. Detailed architectural plans, comprehensive budget breakdowns, outcome data from their current programs, letters of support from medical organizations and patient families. Sarah's credentials were listed prominently. Harvard Medical School. Johns Hopkins residency. Published researcher. Award winner. Television appearances. The application would go before our grant review committee the following month. As foundation chair, I would lead the evaluation process. I set the application aside and continued through my other work. That evening, Sarah called. Hey, did you have a good Thanksgiving? It was fine. Sorry if I was harsh, she said, though her tone suggested she wasn't particularly sorry. I just worry about you. You're capable of so much more. I appreciate your concern. Listen, I wanted to ask, do you know anyone at the Martinez Foundation? I know you work in the nonprofit world. Maybe you have connections. Why do you ask? Our hospital applied for a major grant. It would be helpful to have an inside perspective on their process. Anything you could tell me about how they evaluate applications? I'm not familiar with their specific process, I said truthfully. I wasn't going to discuss it with an applicant. Oh. He sounded disappointed. I thought maybe your charity network would overlap. Well, if you hear anything, let me know. Sure. Thanks, Emma. Really think about what I said. You're 33. It's not too late to start a real career. I could help you. I'll think about it, I said. After we hung up, I returned to the grant application. I'd review it with the same rigor as every other proposal. No favoritism, no personal bias. That was my professional responsibility. The irony wasn't lost on me. The grant review committee met 3 weeks later. Our conference room overlooked the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Polished mahogany table. The committee consisted of 7 members: medical professionals, education experts, community leaders, and financial advisors. I sat at the head of the table. We have 43 applications this quarter, I began. Total requests exceed $340 million. Our available funding is $85 million. As always, we'll need to be selective. Dr. Raymond Phillips, our chief medical advisor, distributed evaluation summaries. I've reviewed all healthcare applications. Several stand out. Metropolitan Children's Hospital has submitted a particularly strong proposal for pediatric oncology expansion. That's Dr. Sarah Chen's hospital, noted Margaret Torres, our community impact director. I've read excellent things about their program. I kept my expression neutral. Let's review the proposal. Dr. Phillips presented the details. The expansion would serve an additional 200 pediatric cancer patients annually. The hospital's current 5-year survival rates exceeded national averages by 12%. The requested $15 million would be matched by $30 million in secured funding. The outcomes data is impressive, Margaret said. And the family-centered care model is exactly the kind of innovation we want to support. What's our site assessment? I asked. David Kumar, our operations director, pulled up his report. I visited the facility last week. Current programs are well managed. Staff is competent and committed. However, I did note some concerns. Such as? Dr. Phillips asked. The hospital has a pattern of underserving low-income communities, David said. 73% of their patients come from households earning over $100,000 annually. For a pediatric hospital, that's unusually affluent. That's likely a geographic factor, Dr. Phillips countered. They're located in an upscale suburb. Perhaps, David said. But other hospitals in similar areas maintain better economic diversity through outreach programs and transportation services. Metropolitan Children seems to passively accept their demographic rather than actively working to expand access. I made a note. Continue. Additionally, David said, their charity care percentage is below average. Only 6% of their services are provided at reduced or no cost to families who can't afford full payment. Most hospitals of their size provide 12 to 18% charity care. Margaret frowned. That's concerning. Healthcare equity is a core foundation priority. Dr. Chen's personal outcomes are excellent, David acknowledged. But institutional commitment to underserved populations appears limited. This expansion would primarily benefit affluent families who can already afford care. The committee discussed the application for 40 minutes. Dr. Phillips advocated strongly for approval. Margaret and David expressed reservations. The other members were divided. Finally, Margaret looked at me. Emma, you've been quiet. What's your assessment? I reviewed my notes. The medical excellence is undeniable. Dr. Chen's program saves children's lives. That matters tremendously. Dr. Phillips nodded, satisfied. However, I continued, our foundation's mission specifically emphasizes healthcare access for underserved populations. We fund excellence that reaches those who otherwise couldn't access it. This proposal, while medically impressive, would primarily serve families who already have substantial resources. We could make our funding conditional, Dr. Phillips suggested. Require them to increase charity care percentages as part of the grant terms. That's possible, I said. But it would require significant monitoring and enforcement. And it shifts our role from funding existing commitment to mandating new priorities. The debate continued. Eventually, we took a preliminary vote. 4 members supported approval with conditions. 3 members, including Margaret and David, opposed funding. As chair, I had the deciding voice. I'm requesting additional information from the hospital, I said. Specifically, I want a detailed plan for how they'll increase healthcare access to low-income families. If they can demonstrate genuine commitment to equity, we'll reconsider. Otherwise, I'm inclined to direct our funding to hospitals already serving underserved populations. Dr. Phillips looked disappointed but nodded. Fair enough. I drafted the letter that afternoon. Sarah called me 3 days later, furious. The Martinez Foundation rejected us, she said. Can you believe that? I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. They said our healthcare equity metrics were insufficient. Healthcare equity metrics. We save children's lives. What does equity have to do with medical excellence? I assume they have specific funding priorities. It's bureaucratic nonsense, Sarah fumed. Some paper-pushing administrator who's never saved a single life is judging my program. My survival rates are exceptional. My patients thrive. But apparently that doesn't matter because we don't meet some arbitrary diversity quota. I said nothing. The worst part. Sarah continued. They offered to reconsider if we submit additional information. Like I have time to jump through hoops for some low-level foundation worker who doesn't understand actual medicine. Maybe the additional information would help your case. Help my case. Sarah's voice rose. I don't need to justify my work to charity administrators. My outcomes speak for themselves. This is exactly what I was saying at Thanksgiving. Nonprofit people live in this fantasy world where paperwork matters more than results. Perhaps they're trying to ensure the funding creates maximum impact. Maximum impact is saving children's lives, Emma. Which I do. Every single day. While foundation workers sit in comfortable offices pretending their bureaucracy matters. I took a breath. Sarah, I need to tell you something. What? I'm the chair of the Martinez Foundation. Silence. What? She finally said. I've been with the foundation for 12 years. I was promoted to chair 2 years ago. I led the committee that reviewed your application. More silence. You. Her voice was faint. You're in charge of the foundation? Yes. The $3.2 billion foundation? Yes. You rejected my application? The committee had concerns about healthcare equity. Your hospital's charity care percentage is 6%. We typically fund institutions providing 12 to 18% charity care. Your patient demographic skews heavily toward affluent families. Our mission prioritizes healthcare access for underserved populations. I don't. Sarah struggled to process. You're a charity worker. You process donations. I oversee grant distribution for one of the largest healthcare foundations in the country. Last year we distributed $287 million in funding. Your hospital applied for $15 million. Your application was one of 43 we reviewed this quarter. But you work in nonprofit. That's not a real career. I chair a foundation with a $3.2 billion endowment. I supervise a staff of 63 professionals. My decisions affect hundreds of hospitals, schools, and community organizations. University presidents call me. Hospital administrators call me. Research directors call me. Because I control access to funding they need. Sarah's breathing was audible. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked about my work. You assumed it was meaningless. But you let us think. At Thanksgiving you said nothing when you said charity work is for losers. That I'm a professional failure? That I should grow up and get a real career. I didn't know. That shouldn't matter, Sarah. The work matters regardless of who does it. Foundations fund the hospitals and research institutions that save lives. We're not glorified paper pushers. We're strategic investors in social impact. Your hospital needs us. Every hospital needs us. Emma, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. You didn't try to understand, I interrupted. For 17 years, you've dismissed my work without ever asking what I actually do. You've mocked my career at every family gathering. You've treated me like a failure because I don't drive a Tesla or vacation in the Maldives. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Can we reconsider the grant? That depends entirely on your hospital's commitment to healthcare equity. We can improve our charity care percentage, Sarah said quickly. We can develop outreach programs. Whatever you need. It's not what I need. It's what underserved communities need. And frankly, I question whether your hospital is genuinely committed to equity or just willing to check boxes for funding. We're committed, Sarah insisted. I'll personally develop the programs. I'll submit a revised proposal, I said. Include a detailed equity plan with specific, measurable goals. Include budget allocations. Include timeline commitments. The committee will review it fairly. Thank you, Sarah said. Emma, really, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were so successful. I was always this successful, I said quietly. You just never respected the work. The revised application arrived 2 weeks later. It was substantially different. Metropolitan Children's Hospital committed to increasing charity care to 15% within 2 years. They proposed a mobile clinic for underserved neighborhoods. They outlined transportation services for low-income families. They allocated $2.3 million of their own budget to equity initiatives. Sarah called me after submitting it. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. Okay. You were right. I looked at our patient demographics. Really looked. We're serving mainly affluent families. Kids in poverty are getting cancer too, but they're not reaching us. That's not acceptable. No, it isn't. I visited 3 hospitals in low-income areas. Their facilities are overcrowded and underfunded, but they're serving everyone who walks through the door. Their charity care percentages are over 20%. They're doing what we should be doing. That's good that you're seeing it. The mobile clinic was my idea, Sarah said. I want to bring pediatric oncology screening directly into underserved neighborhoods. Early detection saves lives. Kids in poverty deserve early detection too. That would make a significant difference. Emma, I know I can't take back what I said at Thanksgiving, but I'm trying to understand now. Your work matters. Really matters. You're making institutions like mine think differently about who we serve. That's the goal. Will the committee approve the revised proposal? I can't tell you that. It wouldn't be ethical. But I can say the equity commitment is much stronger now. Fair enough. She paused. Can I ask you something? Why didn't you tell us years ago? About your position? Would it have mattered? She was quiet for a moment. It shouldn't have. You're right. The work should matter regardless of the title. Exactly. But it would have changed how I talked to you. Which is shameful. I'm ashamed, Emma. I treated you like you were less than me because I didn't understand your career. I was arrogant and dismissive and cruel. Yes, you were. Can you forgive me? Eventually, I said. But Sarah, this isn't about forgiveness. It's about respect. You need to respect people regardless of their job titles or income levels. The janitor at your hospital matters. The administrative assistant matters. The volunteer coordinator matters. Everyone contributing meaningful work deserves respect. You're right, she said softly. I've been so focused on status and prestige that I forgot what actually matters. Helping people. All people. Remember that when you're developing your equity programs. The Grant Review Committee met again 4 weeks later. David Kumar presented his assessment of the revised proposal. The equity plan is comprehensive and well-funded. If implemented as written, Metropolitan Children's Hospital would become a model for accessible pediatric oncology care. My concerns are addressed, Margaret said. This is the kind of institutional transformation we should be supporting. Dr. Phillips smiled. Medical excellence plus equity commitment. It's exactly what we look for. The vote was unanimous. We approved $15 million in funding, contingent on verified implementation of the equity initiatives. I signed the approval letter myself. That evening, Sarah called. We got it. Emma, we got the grant. Congratulations. Thank you. Really. Thank you for pushing us to be better. The mobile clinic starts in 6 months. We're already hiring community health workers. We're partnering with 3 community centers in underserved areas. That's wonderful. I told Mom and Dad, Sarah said, about your position at the foundation. How did they react? They were shocked. Completely shocked. Mom cried. She feels terrible about how they've treated you. Dad wants to call you, but he's not sure what to say. Tell them I'll call this weekend. Emma, thank you for not giving up on us. On me. You could have rejected the application outright. I wouldn't have blamed you. I don't make decisions based on personal relationships, I said. I make them based on impact. Your hospital can now create significant positive impact for underserved children. That's what matters. You're incredible, Sarah said. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. After we hung up, I looked out my office window at the city below. Somewhere in those buildings were the hospitals, schools, and community centers my foundation supported. Somewhere were the children receiving treatment, the students getting scholarships, the families accessing services they couldn't otherwise afford. This was my career. This was my impact. It had always mattered. Christmas dinner was different that year. Sarah arrived in her Tesla, but she asked about my work first. How's the foundation? Are you reviewing applications for next quarter? We are. We received 62 applications. It's going to be competitive. I can imagine. The amount of expertise required to evaluate all those proposals. Mom set down her wine glass. Emma, I owe you an apology. A serious apology. Mom, it's okay. It's not okay, she interrupted. For years we dismissed your career. We made you feel small. We compared you unfavorably to Sarah. We were wrong. Completely wrong. Dad nodded. We're very proud of you, Emma. We always should have been. I appreciate that, I said. I looked up the Martinez Foundation, Uncle Robert said. You've funded cancer research, children's hospitals, education programs all over the country. That's remarkable. Aunt Patricia smiled. We're sorry for treating your work like it was trivial. It's clearly anything but. Cousin Jennifer raised her glass. To Emma. For doing incredible work even when we were too ignorant to recognize it. Everyone toasted. Sarah stood. I have something to say. Emma, you changed our hospital. Not just by providing funding but by challenging us to examine who we serve and who we exclude. Our equity initiatives are transforming our programs. We're reaching families we never reached before. Children are getting treatment they would have missed. That's because you refuse to accept medical excellence without accessibility. That's what the foundation does, I said. We invest in impact. You do more than that, Sarah said. You push institutions to be better than they think they can be. You demand that excellence include equity. That's leadership. Real leadership. Marcus nodded. Sarah's been talking about your foundation constantly. She's applied the equity framework to everything. Our entire department is reassessing how we serve low-income families. That's the ripple effect we hope for, I said. One institution improves, others notice, standards shift. You're creating systemic change, Sarah said. That's more impactful than anything I do in the operating room. I save individual lives. You save thousands of lives by changing how institutions operate. Both matter, I said. Medical care and systemic support both matter. They do, Sarah agreed. But I should have recognized that years ago. The dinner conversation continued, but it felt different. People asked genuine questions about foundation work. They listened to my answers. They treated my career with respect. It was what I'd wanted for years. But I'd also learned something important. My work's value had never depended on their recognition. It mattered because of its impact, not because of their approval. The foundation would continue funding hospitals, schools, and community programs whether my family understood it or not. Children would receive treatment. Students would get scholarships. Communities would access services. That was what mattered. Not titles. Not recognition. Not Tesla vehicles or vacation photos. 3 weeks later, Sarah's hospital opened their first mobile clinic in a low-income neighborhood. They screened 43 children in the first week. They identified 2 cases of childhood cancer that would have gone undetected for months without the mobile clinic. Those children received immediate treatment. Their prognosis was good. Sarah sent me a photo. Children lined up outside the mobile clinic. Parents holding intake forms. Community health workers guiding families through the process. Her text was simple. Thank you for making us better. I saved the photo. This was why the work mattered. This was why it had always mattered. And finally my family understood.